Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we would be seeing on PyArrow dataset. Similar to how we have PyArrow array and PyArrow table, we have another thing called PyArrow dataset. And why do we need PyArrow dataset when we have PyArrow table? So let's discuss all those pointers and simple examples. Okay. So why do we need PyArrow dataset? If you see here, reads data in batches only when needed, minimizes memory usage by avoiding loading the entire dataset at once. So ideally PyArrow dataset, if you want to say in single sentence, it is used when you have large amount of data or when you have partition data in the large amount and you don't want to read all the data at a time and keep them in the memory. Instead, if you want to read them in batches and process, then we can go with the PyArrow dataset. So when you read pa.table of and the data, it reads the whole data and keeps in memory. Instead, using dataset, we can read only the data what is needed. If you say reads data in batches only when needed, minimizes memory usage by avoiding the loading the entire dataset at once. Applies filter at the data source level itself. Reduces input output by reading other relevant rows. So what it says is like while reading the data itself, we can even apply the filter on a column level or a row level and make sure we read only the data which satisfies that condition. I'll show you on how to do that. So instead of reading whole data, we can even apply some filter conditions and read only the specific data. And also it supports multiple formats. Now, how is it different from dataset and table? If you see here, loads data lazily in batches, only on demand. Table will read whole data. Okay. Now, supports lazy evaluation and streaming options. Suitable for in-memory operations where all data is immediately available. Now, filtering efficiency. Pushes down filters to reduce the amount of data read, which we discussed. We'll see now. Applies filter after loading the complete dataset into the memory. Dataset is it says best for out of score analytics and for the large scale data. Ideal for the small datasets that fit entirely in the memory. So if you see here, I have created a dummy data. That's it, and I've written that into this particular path. That's it. So that we can use this data to read it. I've just generated the random data with the 3 columns A, B, C here, and I've written into this path. So now if you want, if I show you the data, see, this is the data it has written, Parquet dataset, data1.parquet, data2.parquet. That's what we have written here. That's it. So now, and how to read the dataset. If you see here, we have a dataset module in PyArrow, ds.dataset of the path and the format of the data. It's a Parquet format. So I've given Parquet. We can give the ORC here and we can give the feather format here. Any format, CSV format, everything. So now if you see dataset.files, we get all the files it has, and data schema, we will get the schema of the dataset, and you can convert it into a table as well. Dataset.toTable, we convert into a table, and you can convert into pandas as well. Dataset.toTable.toPandas, we can convert it into pandas as well. So now if you have feather format, we can even read that data or write into feather format as well. If you see here, feather.write format of the table which we have, and the path, that's it. It has written into this particular path in the feather format. And if you see, I'm reading it as well. If you see ds.dataset, the path, the format. So now this dataset.toTable.toPandas.head, we got the data read, which we have written here. So now if we saw right on how to read the data as well as a data set. So now if you see here, I'm controlling the data as per the point I have said. We can control while reading the data itself, right? So if you see a dataset.toTable, and we can apply the filter condition and convert it to pandas so that I can view it properly. And again, if you see dataset.toTable, again another kind of filter, and you can add much more filters like that. But if you see, while applying the filter in Spark, if you know, we'll be using call off, right, and the column name. Here if you see, we are using dataset.field off and the field name and applying the conditions. That's it. Now if you see, I just want to rename the column name. So here I am doing that using like this. See, I have just the projection. What is the new column name? What is the old column name? New column name and the old column name. If you see dataset.toTable columns equal to projections. That's it. I got the columns renamed. And similarly, you can add the column as well. If you see here, I have list of all the columns from in the dataset. If you see projections.update, I'm giving a new column name. And I'm giving some condition here. That's it for the new column name. If you see, B large will have true or false, which satisfies this condition of the column B. That's it. Based on the column B, I'm creating a new column called B large. That's it. This is how we can create a new columns as well in the data set. Now if you see, it is ideal for reading the partition data, right? And how do we read the partition data is like this. We first create this ds.partitioning of, and the partition, how it is partitioned. If you see, I have my table partition. So I have my data partitioned on year, month, date and all. It's in Hive partitioning. So I just have this, and now I can read using this partition ds.dataset of the particular path wherever you have it, and the partitions. Right now I don't have it, so I just showed you for example. Now if you see, we can even simply give this as well. Instead of writing all this, we can even give like ds.partitioning of and the field names. That's it. Now if you see here, ds.dataset of, we are reading directly from the S3. It's a public dataset, we are reading from S3. If it is a private dataset, as per my previous video, we have to get the S3 file connection first and then read it. And how do we get the S3 file connection? Using this particular class called S3 file system. And we get the secret key and all. We can pass it by keeping in the environment variables or as an arguments to this class. That's it. And then we can access it. That's it. So as I said, if you want to read only a specific partitions and you don't want to read all the partitions and all, that also can be done here. If you, I just have the schema of my underneath the data first, and then I'm creating a data set using ds.filesystem dataset from path, and I'm giving the files I want to read, the Parquet files, and the schema of my files and the format. It's a Parquet file format only. And if you see, I'm using the file system as well. File system, I'm giving and how the data is underneath. It's like a subtree file system. So I just gave that detail, and it's a local file. It's stored in my local system, right? So I just give local file system. If it is stored in the S3, I'll give fs.s3 file system. And what are the partitions I want to read? I want to read only two partitions, 2018 and 19. That's it. So I just read that. And now I am converting into a table and reading it. So this is how we can read only a specific partitions alone instead of reading the whole data. And if you see, as I said, instead of reading the whole data, we can read the data in batches as well. That's what we discussed. So if you see, we have the data set and we are converting into a batches, and read only this particular column only, not all the columns, and apply this particular filter condition on this column. What is the filter? Make sure I read the data which is not null only. That's it. And now if you see, I'm just doing some aggregation operations on the data I read on this batch data. If you see, pc.sum of this particular column as Python, convert that sum into Python, and I'm just doing some kind of count as well on the number of data read in that batch, and I'm doing the mean. So if you see, instead of reading the whole data, I'm reading only the specific column with some filter condition alone as a batches. The whole data gets read here, but instead of reading all at a time, it reads in the batches. Okay. So now on how to write it as a data set, I just have a simple table. If you see ds.write dataset and the table and the folder and the format. In case if you want to write it in the partitions. So if you see, we have to create something like this. Here if you see, part equal to ds.partitioning, and we are creating partitioning on C. Okay, on this column. So what does the C have? C have two values, 1 and 2. Okay, it will be there 5 times. That's it. So ideally C have two unique values, right? So we are creating a partitioning on C. That's it. We are doing Hive style partitioning and we are writing it. So we are writing this table which we read here, and then what is the folder name and the partition file format and how it has to write the partitioning. If you see here, I just wrote into partition dataset, right? This is the partition dataset, C equal to 1, C equal to 2. That's it, because it has two unique values, 1 and 2 only. That's it. So this is how we can write the dataset as well into multiple partitions. So these are the few things which we need to know on how to read the data in the multiple batches, how to read only specific partitions, and how to write the data set into the multiple partitions. And the major thing which we need to be aware of is like data set is used when we have a large amount of data and where we don't want to read the whole data, and we can just filter out immediately after reading. For those kind of scenarios, we can use the data set. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.